Hey everyone, I know it's 7, but we're still admitting people. So if you can just hang tight for a couple, 1, 2, 3 more minutes, we'll be ready to go. Thanks.
You have a sort of a pretty strong in your.
I'm going to admit Dave Carlson now, Carolyn.
Okay, great. Also, hi, everyone. I've got about 24 people left that I'm just verifying, so just give us just another few minutes here, okay? Is Bob Buckman here? I don't recall letting him in. I'm just checking. Bob, if you're here, let me know. Okay, Patty, I have everyone that was waiting in. I don't have everyone in attendance, so there, if you want, I can either just call out those few names to see if perhaps they're here. If that works, just to make sure I didn't let them in the swoop of things.
Sure, let's do that. And
Okay.
then if there are some folks that other folks know are planning to be here and aren't in, perhaps they could advance the link, because I think sometimes that gets lost in people's email.
Okay. So let me go ahead and start at the top. So I'm looking for Doug Bell with the Colorado Pro Chapter. Doug, are you here?
Elizabeth, unmute yourself.
I'm representing all of the Colorado Pro chapter.
Okay,
I just interacted with him by text.
okay. Okay, I got it. Elizabeth Potter.
I go by Beth.
Beth, sorry.
Thanks.
Okay.
That's okay. Doesn't matter. Either way.
Okay, thank you for letting me know.
You bet.
Is that 2 total votes? Can you confirm that? Yes.
She's holding up 2 fingers, yes.
Yes, okay. All right, so then it looks like I'm missing Bob Buckman. Have we seen Bob yet? Give him another minute. Okay.
Bob Buckman just texted me. He's having trouble getting in. Could somebody please advance the link to him or troubleshoot otherwise with him?
Okay, Michael Davidson, I'm gonna let him in. He's here. Go ahead and let him in. Irwin, have we seen Irwin? No? Okay. Brian Eckert, representing Virginia Pro. Okay. Jessica, and I will massacre that last name, so I'm not going to try. Jessica G, representing Southern Connecticut State University. Okay. Leah Hunter. Beth Conrad.
Beth is here.
Oh,
Apparently,
thank you, Beth.
Irwin is here. Irwin is here, but he's having some technical difficulty.
Okay, thank you. And we'll keep moving on.
I sent Irwin the new link, so he should get that momentarily.
I'm looking for John Long, representing the New York Deadline Club.
This is Claire Regan. He's on his way in.
Okay, thank you. I'm looking for Nicole Mistretta, representing University of Louisiana at Lafayette. Okay, I'm looking for Jessica Ansures, representing the Rio Grande Pro Chapter. I'm looking for Michael, representing our Indiana Pro Chapter. Alyssa Purpura, representing the University of Oklahoma. Susan Stevens, representing the Chicago Headline Club. Greg, representing Northwestern. Joanna Talabani, representing DePaul.
Hi, Caroline. I'm here to represent DePaul. Joanna had a medical emergency.
Robert
So I'm
Ugad.
standing in as the alternate.
Join the
Okay.
meeting.
So, Amy. Got it. Okay, so Amy, you are representing DePaul.
Right, we have 1 vote.
All right, you are good to go. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, and then I missed somebody. Who did I miss? Somebody was chatting and I missed it.
Liz Enoch's here from Northern California chapter, pro chapter. Our president, Ben Trefny, is still having trouble getting in.
Okay, we will make sure he gets the updated
Yeah,
link.
I sent him the new link, so hopefully that helps.
Okay,
Thank you.
and then have we seen or heard from Pat Trotsky with Keystone?
You have 3 people in the waiting room, Caroline.
Okay, I'm gonna let them in. I don't recognize their names, so we'll have to confirm who just joined. I'm gonna let Erwin back in.
Garth Bishop is Ohio Pro, Central Ohio Pro, Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
Bob Buckman is signing in.
Perfect. Let Bob in and Garth. I don't recognize this phone number, but I feel like it might be Amy Fickling. I know that she had.
Sterling Marita. Joined the meeting.
Okay, Sterling.
Start video. There I am.
There he is. Hi, Bob.
Gave me a scare. It wouldn't let me in for 8 minutes.
Okay, so we're still waiting on Susan Stevens from Chicago, along with Ben from NorCal and Pat from Keystone.
This is Liz again from SPJ NorCal Pro Chapter. Ben says he's in under his employer name, KLW.
That's okay, perfect. I just let them in. I was getting ready to confirm who that was. Thank you. Okay, well, I believe I've got everybody in, and I haven't heard from those that I've called unless they've checked in. So Patty, you can let me know how you want to, I can give you a total of how many I have thus far.
Let's go ahead and do that. If there's an update at some point in the next few minutes, why don't you provide that?
Take care of that for you. Thank you, everyone, for your patience.
While we are waiting on Caroline, I think I'll do a test poll so that we can kind of get a chance to test that out. Hold on one second. Well, hold on. Now it's not working for me.
Mm-hmm.
We've made it this far in the day. We can keep going. Hold on.
Can one of the staff members in the background do a quick cross-check for me? I am looking at a total of 67 of the delegates that are here. I just need to confirm our attendee list against that.
Say again.
You're good, Bob. I was talking to staff.
Okay. Okay.
Alyssa, was that you that I just let in? I didn't recognize the first name. With the University of Oklahoma? Looks like Narissa is having issues getting signed in. Anyone can resend
I just sent her the
Okay.
password. Hopefully that does the trick. Caroline, tell me when we're ready to rock and roll.
Okay, so I'm wrapping up now, and then I will, I just need maybe one more second here to move the attendees that are not here to a separate page so we can be sure that their votes are counted. So I just need about 30 more seconds, I'll be done.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I'm ready to do a test poll here. So
All right,
we can have
John.
a little fun while we're waiting. There
Okay.
you go. For our next year's in-person SPJ 2021. So you should see on your screen, obviously, the question. Many of you are clicking on it, so it looks like you're finding it. When it comes time to do the voting, it'll be up to, I believe, Patty, but I think with 30 seconds or so, we'll allow for voting. All right. And then I can share back the results so that you can see them. And then I will stop sharing results, and then you can click out of the poll by clicking the X in the upper corner, and that leaves your screen.
John, the results only show us percentages, not counts.
I see the counts here.
Yeah, but we never find out what the count is.
Yeah, well, I can share that back to you verbally if that's important to know, of course. So, yeah.
There's a couple of people in the chat that say that only the SPJ logo came up and they never got the poll.
Right, so that needs to be corrected. You might be entered into the meeting in the wrong category. So Bob Elder and Michael Drudge. If anybody else did not see the poll, if you'd please put that in the chat field so we can make sure we troubleshoot anything here.
Okay, at this time we have 98 votes represented with 71 delegates.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for your patience. That's quite a feat to do that against Zoom.
Excellent job. We're gonna get rolling here. I heard one more doorbell, like somebody was still in the waiting room, but I'll let you deal with that. And with that, at 7:22, we're going to call the meeting to order. John, we do have somebody taking minutes of this session, I assume?
Yes, ma'am, we do.
Super. So 7:22, the meeting is called to order. So hi, welcome. I'm Patty Newberry, this year's SPJ president, and welcome you to our official SPJ 2020 business session. So as most of you know, we typically stage 2 business meetings at our annual conventions, one at the start to introduce candidates for office, and then a second one to consider resolutions for delegate vote. In this unusual year, however, we decided to stage just this single meeting. Voting for candidates, as you probably know, kicked off at noon yesterday and concludes at noon tomorrow. And the candidate speeches were recorded and available on Election Central. So at this hour, every member of SPJ, every member, not just delegates, every member of SPJ should have received their ballot via email and been invited to submit their votes by noon tomorrow. So in just a brief moment, I'll offer a short report about the year and then bring on John Schertzer, who you've already met here, to do likewise. But first, I would like to welcome Dave Carlson. Dave, many of you will know, was the SPJ president in 2005, 2006, and he is serving as our parliamentarian tonight. Dave Carlson, if you're with us, you could open up your mic and carry on with our script.
Sorry, everybody. I thought I had the mic open, but I guess I didn't. Anyways, pleasure to be here and see you all. The main duties of the convention delegates are to consider important resolutions and bylaws changes that will govern SPJ and help set its agenda in the future. The bylaws of the society require that the business meetings of the society be run by Robert's Rules of Order, and I'm the guy who gets to interpret those for you today. As we get started, I want to review the voting procedures for bylaws amendments and resolutions. Voting is done by chapter and regional delegates, and those are the only people who should be voting in this meeting tonight. In fact, you're the only ones who should be in the meeting at all. Each chapter in good standing with the national organization receives votes based on 1 vote for each 50 chapter members or fraction thereof. Regional delegates that represent unaffiliated members in each region are also calculated based on 1 vote for each 50 members or fraction thereof. We need to find out how many voters we actually have here tonight. So Carolyn, let me ask you to tell us about that.
Sure, thank you. So I do need to confirm, I have a CC Rogers in our waiting room. I don't have her listed as a delegate. So if anyone knows anything about that, let me know. But for now, I can go ahead and confirm that we have, I'm sorry.
Caroline, Cece is the faculty advisor for the Northwestern chapter.
Okay. Would that be Greg? Perhaps would she be taking Greg's place? I have him listed as the delegate.
I don't know if she
Okay.
is taking Greg's place. I can email her.
Okay, yeah, that would actually be really helpful while we're.
Yeah, I'll chat with her.
Okay.
Right.
So taking that into account, we have 98 votes on the floor with 71 present delegates. If CC is actually the delegate for that chapter, that will make it 99 and 72.
Thank you very much, Carolyn. So obviously this year is unusual in that we're hosting the business session online in a virtual format. And this means we're going to have to vote differently as well. This was spelled out in your delegate handbook and in our delegate training session, but here's a general reminder. Some of you hold multiple votes, and as multiple voters, your additional votes are only going to be used if they're needed. In an effort to make the meeting run more smoothly and quickly, an initial vote on any motion or resolution will be taken using the Zoom poll feature as demonstrated by John. A dialogue will appear on each delegate's screen asking for a yes or no vote. The results of the poll will determine how many delegates voted in favor of or against the question, but not how many votes delegates cast for choice. If the spread is greater than the difference between the number of yes and no votes, the poll will decide the matter. For example, if all delegates are present and the result of a poll is 60 yes to 15 no, the motion would pass. In that scenario, opponents could not have prevailed even if all the spread votes.
Hearing the results, but when I plugged this in, I lost a picture. So I'm not on, I don't see anything going on, and they're going to put things on the screen to react to. What? I did. It didn't have any effect.
Well, anyway, so even if all the spread votes had been cast against the motion in the what I just mentioned, then it wouldn't make any difference, right? If the difference is less than the spread, then the chair will ask each multi-voter to use the chat feature to provide his or her name, region, or chapter, and the number of votes she wants to cast for or against the motion. Multi-voters may split their votes, casting some for the motion and some against it. After staff tallies the votes cast by multi-voters, then the president will announce whether the motion passed or failed. In the event of ambiguity regarding the will of the convention, a roll call vote may be taken. In a few minutes, we will vote on approval of the 2019 minutes, which will give us practice before we start in the readout. Thanks everyone for bearing with me. Patty?
Thanks very much, Dave, for being here and for serving as our important parliamentarian. So I have just a few comments on the year that we are just ending. It was an interesting year to serve as SPJ's president. When I began my term last September, I predicted a bread and butter year, low on drama and high on the necessary work to finish a board restructuring that we had started way back in 2015. I think I might have used the word boring at the time, but instead it was anything but a boring year. So we started the year, as you know, without an executive director. We had been without one since April. And in December, we met that challenge by bringing on John Schertzer, who has done really an exceptional job under very trying circumstances. We started the year, of course, planning for an in-person EIJ. It would have been our 10th. It would have been in Washington, D.C. with our longtime friends, RTD&A. And of course, we pivoted instead just about 2.5 months ago to this virtual SPJ 2020. We started the year with an operating budget that was in the red, and now we are, as of the second quarter of the year, we are back in the black. We started the year with our long troubled, much maligned database and a solution that was not the right solution. And now we have the right solution called Impexium. And we are getting ready to flip the switch on that this fall. We started the year without a staffer who was designated as our chief programming officer or chief programming staff member. And we corrected that in August by bringing on a new staff member in that capacity. And we started the year about halfway through this process to create a strategic plan, something we'd been working on for more than a year prior. And that was part of the ordered restructuring of the board from 23 to 18 to 9 this past year. The next step was to put a strategic plan in place. And the board last Saturday, voted for that plan and voted for the first year iteration of that plan. So that came along nicely. We planned, of course, for 12 regional conferences. I think you all know that that didn't happen. We were going to have our usual board meetings in Indianapolis in person. And even for a short minute in time, I was going to go to The Hague with John Schertzer for an international press event. And of course, none of that happened. Instead, we made a very strong pivot into virtual programming. We remade the front page of our spj.org to answer the moment. Provided a lot of resources for journalists to cover COVID, and then of course to cover racial unrest in our cities. So despite all these challenges, I'm really proud of SPJ. I think that we as an organization rose to the occasion. And so far, knock on wood, I think we're delivering a pretty solid virtual conference. So you'll hear a little bit more from me tomorrow night if you attend the closing event when I turn over the gavel to Matt Hall as the next SPJ president. And now I'd like to welcome John to the screen to offer some more detail about the year that we're just closing out.
Thanks, Patty. Appreciate that. And greetings from the office in Indianapolis. We've been here all day in a socially distanced control room, trying to make SPJ 2020 happen without any major issues. And so far we've succeeded. We knew that coming into this meeting, this meeting in particular was going to be a bit clunky, simply because it is definitely a new way for us to conduct our business. So we appreciate your forgiveness and your patience. I do have some remarks here I'd like to share with you as a sort of an annual report from your executive director. I think it would be a good practice from this year forward for the executive director to address this body and inform you as to the state of SPJ, so to speak. The annual business meeting seems like the right time to do it. It should be noted that this organization has a culture of openness and transparency, including greater interest in its board meetings than I have ever experienced before in my career. So this doesn't need to be a long report because most of you on this call are generally well aware of the state of things. If I had to choose one word to label where SPJ is on September 12th, 2020, it would be momentum. It's not an overly optimistic word, in my opinion. I'm not trying to play down the challenges we are facing or ignore what seems to have been a very, very interesting 2019. But we will get to those in a minute. But why do I say momentum? First, we have a strong roadmap for the days ahead by way of a compelling strategic plan for SPJ, as Patty mentioned. I won't steal Matt's thunder, Matt Hall, since I know he wants to share this during his comments tomorrow afternoon, and much more will be shared in the days ahead. But I love our strategic plan because it honors our past, accentuates the things that are working right now for SPJ, and is bold in trying to fill some gaps that will advance journalism overall. Its language is crisp, cause-driven, and relevant. Staff have a direction from which to work, and the days of being reactionary and trying to be all things to all people hopefully are drawing to a close. Second for momentum is this SPJ 2020 event that we've experienced today. It was quite a lift to move from the Washington Hilton for EIJ to your living room for SPJ 2020. I won't go through all the various issues we had to solve, but bottom line is board, volunteers, and staff made it happen, and here we are. We doubled both our goal for sponsorship and registration for this event. No event in recent memory has been attended by more SPJ members. Third, and related to number two, is our growing capacity and skill in doing virtual events in education. Frankly, we were forced out of our comfort zone when COVID-19 prevented us from gathering together for regional events, our SDX awards, and EIJ. And you felt it too, by needing to change your entire chapter meeting rhythm and strategy. I have been so impressed with what I've seen. Many chapters held tremendous virtual awards events. Some have created quite a niche in virtual programming, and all of us are at least trying new ways to stay connected virtually. It's been a sight to behold. At the staff level, we are starting a new education strategy that should completely elevate SPJ's contributions to journalism education, both virtually and live in person. The SPJ Foundation, a longtime leader in journalism education, is funding this effort. Fourth, for our momentum is our budget. While it's not great at the moment, what I inherited was pretty shocking. We have some minor momentum in that we will likely finish the year on the plus side. And this can be attributed to major expense reductions in travel, but also events like this, SPJ 2020. We have some stability in our bank accounts, and that gives us some momentum as we head into 2021. While these are all positive developments, we do have a lot of challenges to confront. The main reason for the budget issue is the decline in membership. Our strategic plan provides lots of great ideas by which to address this, but maybe more importantly, it gives a reason why people should care about SPJ again. We need to be more cause-driven and speak more directly to those we want within our tent, and not only those here already. We need to be champions for journalists, fighters for the First Amendment, stewards of ethical journalism, and producers of journalism's future. That, by the way, was a sneak peek of our strategic plan. Our growth challenges are magnified at the collegiate level where we've seen the steepest decline, and I know we have some college chapter members here with us today. I know that for the majority of you, your chapters, pro or student, are also seeing decline or simply staying even. We have an issue that can't be fixed with a logo, a slogan, a billboard, a flyer, a mailing, a website, or an email. This is a world in which joining a community or local organization is not as much of a priority as it once was. People are busy, they are choosy, they are moving networking online. In this changing world, the number of untouchable traditions in our organization needs to shrink. We need to adapt. We need to start doing things that are so consequential and so compelling that they are impossible to ignore. We still have some structural repairs to make first. Patty mentioned this earlier. In a couple of months, staff and you will be using a state-of-the-art membership and donor database system called Impexium. This will be significant. As we chart a powerful future for SPJ, data is our friend. We will become a smarter organization because of Impexium. We also need to study how we handle this conference in the future. Next year, we are in New Orleans, and then we are free agents. Staff is studying ideas that could match up with our strategic plan and also be financially prudent for SPJ. We haven't had a chance to think this creatively about our annual meeting in a long time, and we should seize this moment. I will end it here with just appreciation for how welcome you as leaders in SPJ have made me feel. And I want to express appreciation to our staff. Early in my tenure, we met for a retreat and established goals for the type of work culture we want to build. One of our statements we agreed to is that we want to be perceived outside of the organization as professional, service-oriented, and dedicated. And I hope we are getting closer to that goal every day. I have been impressed by how this team has come together as we started working remotely, and then we had to organize SPJ 2020. Thanks to Ashlyn, Billy, Caroline, Jake, Jennifer, Karen, Larry, Linda, Lou, Rod, Tony, and Zoe for the chance to work beside you each and every day. We have momentum. It is a great time to be in SPJ. Thank you.
Thanks very much, John. Lots of good takeaways there. All right, we now welcome Alex Turquinio to the microphone, who's going to give us a brief report on the nominations process for this year.
Thank you, Patty. And don't look now, you won't find this in the packets. It has been such an active period, particularly this week for the committee, that we've literally been group editing this in Google Docs until 5 minutes before the meeting. So I'm going to read our consensus report and then I'll send it in afterwards to share and for the minutes. So we've been asked to make a nominations committee report. And despite the obvious headwinds this year, we're pleased to present a strong slate with multiple candidates for many of the offices. So far, we've heard that the voting process has been running smoothly. And as a reminder, voting closes tomorrow at noon, so it's not too late to get the word out to your chapter members to vote. First, the nominations committee this year included myself as the committee chair, also Lizzie Knox, Joanna Hernandez, and Becky Talent. We drafted this report together and agreed by consensus, and we've indicated where there were differences of opinion, and my fellow committee members are all present tonight, either as delegates or as guests. The committee's major challenge this year has been finding volunteers to serve as regional coordinators. Unfortunately, we were unable to recruit someone for Region 7 after contacting at least a dozen potential candidates. The Region 7 coordinator, the RC caucus chair, members of the nomination committee, and other SPJ leaders all attempted to recruit someone, but it's never too late. If you or anyone you know from the region wishes to volunteer, contact incoming President Matt Hall. However, the nominations committee key concerns involved complaints from some people that had been raised by some candidates and also other SPJ leaders that the current system favors incumbents and other insiders. We believe there is some room for some improvements in the campaign policies and procedures, which would make the process fair and more transparent. The main issues we identified were, broadly speaking, the use of the membership email list for campaign purposes, the vetting of campaign statements on the website, the neutrality requirements for SPJ leaders, and the timing of the delegate business meeting. 3 out of 4 of the committee members favored an independent task force to review these campaign policies, with Becky Talent preferring to have the nominations committee work with the national board. Joanna Hernandez noted that the nominations committee is generally led by members who may have benefited from the existing campaign policies, so an independent review may have more credibility. Liz Enoch suggested that the task force include chapter, committee, community leaders, and also a member who is unaffiliated with the chapter. So just to give a few more details on those 4 areas that we looked at, use of the membership email list. The SPJ campaign guidelines clearly state, and have done so for many years, that no candidate may use the membership database for campaign or political purposes. And a key consideration has always been just having a fair and level playing field. SPJ does not share member contact information with candidates, but some candidates may have that data through either their current or previous positions. The committee unanimously recommended that SPJ not share the membership database more widely, but that it look into developing additional creative ways that the national office could share the campaign messages. For example, SPJ has added advanced campaign videos to Election Central this year because members were unable to meet in person. And those videos might be worth keeping in future years, even when we have in-person meetings. More pointedly, we felt there should be a real penalty if we find that a candidate ignored this prohibition. As one committee member said, the rule has no teeth now because there's no penalty clause. Regarding accuracy of the statements on our website, 2 of the committee members were on the national board when we discussed whether the nominations committee should be actively involved in vetting candidates, with some board members at that time referring to this as the, quote, good housekeeping seal of approval. And the board ultimately rejected that idea. However, the committee does see a need for some more vetting to assure the accuracy and transparency of the statements on our website. One committee member suggested we put the onus on the candidates to provide us with work examples that we could post to Election Central. And these may be published articles, links, academic papers. And if they have no recent work, they can include an explanation as to why. And there's no requirement for recent work. Furthermore, we believe the gathering and checking of this information should be done by the staff. Regarding the neutrality of SPJ leaders, many people have been around for a while remember that national board members could not endorse in the past because of policy changes. The national board, the regional coordinators, and the nominations committee may all endorse candidates in national campaigns now, but some members may not be aware of this. Given some recent dissension about a regional coordinator caucus endorsement during the actual voting process, we thought that the wisdom of these endorsements warranted some study and debate. And the concerns about the RCs being allowed to endorse were shared by 3 of the 4 committee members. Becky Talent disagreed. Joanna Hernandez preferred either total or partial neutrality. For example, perhaps allowing endorsements within the RC's own region. And Liz Enoch preferred not to allow RC endorsements at all. Finally, we do point out, as has already been pointed out, that this meeting is being done while the voting is still in process. And we did raise this issue during the planning of this convention. We raised 2 potential. Yeah.
Join the meeting.
Okay. We're almost there. We raised 2 potential concerns. First, that this might give a platform to some candidates and not others based on delegate status. And second, that the delegates should be able to freely discuss long-range planning, already knowing who would be on the incoming board. So that is our report. In conclusion, we respectfully submit this, and we'd be happy, any of us now or later, to respond to any of your questions.
Thank you, Alex. Dave Carlson, I don't know protocol here. Would this be an appropriate time to take questions for Alex's report? We don't have it in writing. We have it only verbally.
Yeah.
I'm seeing Bob Becker no. So we would ask Alex to submit that in writing. Okay. And thank you for the suggestions. It'll of course be up to Matt Hall and the next board on whether they would like to go with your recommendation to do an independent review. All right, thanks so much. We're now resuming our itinerary here. So let's see, sorry. So a reminder on the process today. If you want to speak as we start the business of the business meeting, I ask that you send me a note in the chat field that says, I would like to speak, or something very close to that. And then I'll recognize you and then you'll unmute yourself and speak. We are going to seek to limit the time for each speaker to, I believe we agreed on 2 minutes. Is that right, Dave Carlson?
Yes.
Right, very
I don't
good.
think you can hear me though.
Patty,
Yes,
I would like to make 2 procedural motions to address those issues.
thank you. Hold on just a half a second, Bob, and we'll get there anyway. So we're going to take a motion here on the time limit, but just as a reminder, when you want to speak, please put it in the chat field so we can track that. And then I'll recognize you, you unmute yourself and have your say. And now, do we have a motion?
Yes, I would like to make 2 motions, Patty. Let's deal with one of them separately. So I will make a motion to limit debate to 2 minutes for each speaker. Is there a
And do we have-
second?
Thank you. Do we have a second on that motion?
Lauren Bartlett, Region 11, happy to second.
Thank you, Lauren Bartlett. So we have a motion and we have a second. Is there any discussion? If there's no discussion, John, is it possible to do this as a poll to practice? All those in favor?
Yes, absolutely. 1 second. So restate the motion, Bob, one more
The
time.
motion is to limit debate to 2 minutes for each person.
Okay, hold on 1 second and then we'll launch it. Okay, you should see a poll now on your screen that says voting in progress, or it says attendees or it's limit debate to 2 minutes for each person, sorry. And you should be able to choose yes, no, or abstain. If you can't see the poll, I know a couple of you said that before, I don't think it's anything on the administrator's end that will repair that. I'm not sure why you wouldn't be able to see it.
And it's same person, Michael Drudge cannot see it.
I don't know if you're on a phone, maybe if that's an issue, or what the
I think it's a limited number of people. So Michael Drudge the record will show that you're going to cast your votes in the chat field. And if there's Bob Elder, you said you can see at that time, so that's great. So it's just Michael Drudge at this point. Are we ready to close this poll, John?
Sure.
Very good. The ayes have it. And the vote was 67 yes, 3 no, and 2 abstain. I'm saying that for the record because I'm told that our friends watching on YouTube may not be able to see the polls.
Okay. The second motion I'd like to make is just because for those of you who have been delegates for many years, we normally vote by voice vote and if necessary, counting of cards. We can't do that this year. So just so that everything is clear, I would like to make a motion that we adopt the procedure that's described in the delegate manual as the voting procedure.
Thank you, Bob. Is there a second on the motion?
I'll second that. Randy
And the name-
Shostak.
Thank you, Randy. Is there any discussion or question? We're going to need a second poll here, John. And it's not the minutes poll, it's accept the protocols laid out in the delegates manual for voting. Very good. Thank you, everyone. As a reminder, please do keep yourself muted if you're not, if you don't have the floor. And we have 65 votes in favor of Bob Becker's second motion. We have no opposing and we have 2 abstentions. So the vote carries. And now let's move on. So at this time, we're going to look at the minutes for last year, the 2019 minutes from the business session of last year. And do I have a motion to accept the minutes of last year?
Patty? Lauren Bartlett from Region 11. I have a motion to approve the minutes with some amendments.
Thank you. Do I have a second on Lauren's motion?
Becky Talent, Region 10, yes. I'll second.
Thank you very much. And let's return to Lauren then for her amendment.
Yeah, typically the minutes reflect the makers of the motion and the seconds of the motion, and that's not reflected in the minutes from last year. So I'd like staff to go back and update the minutes so that we have a better and more complete record. I also think, Patty, that there was one other portion you were going to speak to.
Right, and we may need somebody to make the motion since I should not make the motion, but it's been brought to my attention that the vote for one of the candidates last year was misstated in the minutes. This was at-large candidate Haston Willis. The vote was recorded in the minutes as, excuse me, I got to get my right notes in front of me. I believe it was 377 and the actual number was 177. Lauren, can you fact check me? Is that what we determined earlier in reviewing this?
Just a moment. Let me check that right now. Uh, 371 and 171.
Thank you. So it was incorrectly reported in the minutes as 371 and should be corrected to 171. So, Lauren, you can amend.
Sure, I'll make that part of my amendments.
Thank you very much. So we have
Is
a
that okay with you,
request.
Becky, as the second? Okay.
Very good. So we have a motion from Lauren Bartlett, seconded by Becky Talent, and we'll need a poll on that. John, to approve the minutes as amended, one, asking for staff updates to add the persons who created a motion and seconded the motion, and then secondly, to correct the vote on Haston Willis's candidacy of last year.
Please let me know if that is an inappropriate way to state it. We have for the record what the amendments are. So.
I think that's fine. Thanks.
That's fine, John.
All right, so we have 60 votes in favor, no against, and 8 abstaining, so the motion carries. Thank you very much. And with that, we are now moving into resolutions for delegates to be considered. So, as a reminder, the annual convention of delegates is the supreme legislative body of the Society of Professional Journalists. Delegates at the convention are charged with the responsibility of providing direction to the society as it seeks to serve the best interests of its members and all of journalism. The main duties of the convention delegates are to consider important resolutions and bylaw changes that govern SPJ and help set its agenda in the future. The bylaws require that the business meeting of the society be run by rules of order, which Dave Carlson already reviewed. And so we know that Dave is assisting us in that respect. So I hope this isn't repetitive. I'm just going with the script, friends. So we're going to review the voting procedures for bylaw amendments and resolutions. Voting is done by chapter and regional delegates, and those are the only ones in this meeting who should vote. So if you are here at invitation to be part of the meeting for another reason, then please do not vote. Each chapter in good standing with the national organization gets 1 vote for each 50 members or fraction thereof. Again, as Dave reviewed, regional delegates that are that represent unaffiliated members in each region are also calculated based on 1 vote for each 50 members or fraction thereof. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Resolutions Chair, Michael Savino, who will go over the resolutions that we are considering tonight.
Yes, thank you. And you all obviously should have the resolutions by now. There's 13 of them. And before we get to voting, I just want to point out for those of you who maybe took a look at these earlier in the week that there have been some changes to a few of these motions, the most significant being Resolution 3, a resolution on the SPJ sponsorship policy. We can go into more detail about what that was, but the last paragraph, what will be resolved as a part of this resolution, has been changed to alter how this would become a policy. It was accepted as a friendly amendment this morning, so that's why the change is already made. Otherwise, there are minor changes. Resolution 4, there was an incomplete sentence early on that has been fixed. Resolution 7, there was an alteration just to recognize how long Voice of America has been around. Resolution 10, just fixing a date that was incorrect. So I just want to make you all aware of that before we get to them. And for the interest of expediency, I'll just go right into Resolution 1. A resolution recognizing Ginny Frizzy, submitted by Donald W. Myers, SPJ Region 10 Coordinator, and Rebecca Talent, University of Idaho Chapter Advisor. I'll skip the co-sponsors since there's several of them, but you can see the support that this has. The Resolutions Committee's recommendation was positive. Whereas Virginia A. Ginny Frizzy, a longtime member of the Society of Professional Journalists and former national board member, died June 1st, 2020 of complications of COVID-19. Whereas for more than 40 years, Ginny has been an advocate for journalists, journalism, and SPJ. It has been said that there was not a communications or journalism-related event in Western Pennsylvania that Ginny was not somehow involved in. Whereas Ginny freely gave her time, experience, and resources to promote journalism and specifically SPJ. Whereas a regional director from 1994 to 2000, a member of SPJ's executive committee and a chapter leader, Ginny could always be counted on to help out in contest judging or any other task that needed to be done for the good of the society. Whereas Ginny was recognized as regional director for the, whereas Ginny was recognized as regional director of the year for 3 of the 4 years she served, setting a record and raising the bar for her fellow leaders. Whereas Ginny quickly made friends with whom she developed lifetime bonds. Whereas Ginny was well known as a kind soul with an enormous stubborn streak and bullheaded attitude for making sure SPJ was always on the right side of history, who would often lecture leaders or anyone who would listen about history or procedure. Whereas Ginny was a fixture at SPJ conventions, even as she experienced health challenges, regularly bidding on items for the Legal Defense Fund's silent auction, often engaging in a lively bidding war with numerous people, and often offering support and insights on journalism and SPJ's mission to both SPJ members and leaders alike. Whereas because of Ginny's selfless nature led her to encourage more people to attend conferences, she annually hosted the Frizzy Flophouse for women attending SPJ EIJ conferences. Those rooms held between 3 and 10 occupants depending on the year, with Ginny rigorously discussing issues of the day with all participants. Therefore, be it resolved, the Society of Professional Journalists, meeting in convention virtually on September 12, 2020, do offer our condolences to Ginny's family and her many friends, journalists or not. Be it further resolved, the Society honors her 40+ years of service to the Society and the example she has set for all of us. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution will be presented to Ginny's family. With that, is there a motion?
So moved.
Madam President, a point of order.
Yes, you can be recognized.
Sorry, we actually need a motion on the floor before Mike introduces these resolutions. And normally we have a motion that suggests that we consider them in a block. That's entirely up to the body whether they want to do that. But
I would like to make that motion.
That we approve these and second it, and then Mike can read them.
Well, inasmuch as we have jumped the gun and we have the first resolution read, at this moment, I'd like to go ahead and take a motion on this, and then we'll return to that question, Dave. So do
we had a motion. I think we had one from Jeff South.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
I I saw Jenny McCabe in the chat is the second. Is there any discussion? If there is no discussion, John will have a poll on that, and then we'll take up the other matter. The resolution carries with 72 yes, no nays, and 1 abstention. Thank you very much.
Now, Patty, I'd like to make a motion to consolidate all of the resolutions except Resolution 3 into a block so that we can vote on them once. And I want to note in the motion that this does not deprive the chair of her prerogative to read 1 or 2 of those aloud. All others will be placed on the record in the minutes and published on the website.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Erwin Gratz, main pro, second.
Erwin Gratz, second. Is there discussion?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Bob,
Okay,
I recognize you.
I don't know how sticky you want to be on consistency of style, but in going through these, I noticed that some of the paragraphs end with an and others do not. Some have a comma, some have a semicolon. As long as they're consistent within a particular resolution, I don't much care, but I would suggest, Mike, that before these are published, that you go back and make them consistent within each resolution. For example, if you look at the Belarus, and I don't know what happened because I went back and looked at the original and it was all correct. You see, the first 2 whereases do not have an and at the end, and the next one does, and the next one doesn't. It just needs to be cleaned up a little bit.
All right, well,
Yeah,
that is.
I can fix that.
Thank you. So we're not going to try to amend the motion on the floor. They'll just take that as advisement to the resolution committee. And Bob, I would ask that you communicate anything directly to Michael Savino then in terms of writing issues or punctuation issues that need to be cleaned up. Is there more discussion on Bob Becker's motion, seconded
I
by
believe
Erwin Gratz?
Catherine Foxhall has asked.
Catherine Foxhall has asked to speak next. Thank you.
Catherine, you need to unmute.
Yes, I'm unmuted now. On resolution number 10, which the FOIA committee submitted, there were about 3 or 4 links to outside material. And when I looked at the master list, the links weren't there. They're not working. So I wonder if I could get consent that those would be re-entered after we vote on the resolution.
Is that acceptable, Mike Savino?
Yes, I can do that.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? I'm not seeing any requests in the chat field for additional comment on Bob Becker's motion to bundle everything but number 3. All right, let's go ahead and put up a poll on Bob's motion and go ahead and vote.
Okay, I would now, because we just bundled all of those together, I would like to make a motion to adopt all of those resolutions.
Just real quick though, maybe we should share, I'm sorry if we didn't share the number results of this particular
Yeah,
poll.
sorry, I missed that, John, responding to a text. And that last resolution carried, and that was to move the said resolutions. However, we have a request, I'm sorry, it carried at 69, 1 against, and 3 abstaining. I want to get that on the record. There is a question in the chat field that I need to address, and that is, could we read the resolution titles for those folks listening on YouTube? Do our friends on YouTube have access to the packet of resolutions otherwise, as opposed to try to read them out at this time? I think that's a question for headquarters.
The resolutions are located on spj.org. So they can be downloaded there as it's, I think, a PDF.
Is that suitable, Julia, who's asking? Just reading the titles would be nice for historical value. We could do that. Bob Elder is asking if we could read them for the minutes. I guess that would not take so much time. So we have concluded that vote. So let's deal with that question. The titles, not the whole things. Thank you, Julia. Michael Drudge, I'm sorry, Mike Savino, would you read the title of the resolutions that we are now considering, or now we have now elected to bundle?
Sure, that's not a problem. So for the record, the resolutions that we just passed by consensus include Resolution 2, a resolution honoring Jim Lair; Resolution 4, a resolution condemning violence toward and arrest of reporters in Belarus; Resolution 5, a resolution calling for press freedom in Hong Kong; Resolution 6, a resolution in support of Maria Ressa and the staff of the Rappler; Resolution 7, a resolution in support of journalists of Voice of America; Resolution 8, a resolution condemning law enforcement targeting journalists in Oregon; Resolution 9, a resolution condemning attacks on press freedom by the Seattle Police; Resolution 10, a resolution opposing restrictions on speech that could worsen a pandemic; Resolution 11, thanking SPJ's 2019-2020 Board of Directors; Resolution 12, thanking outgoing President Patricia Gallagher Newberry; and Resolution 13, thanking SPJ staff for their tremendous work on the society, thanking the staff for their tremendous work for the society and SPJ 2020. So that leaves Resolution 3, a resolution on the SPJ sponsorship task force. I will first entertain any motion.
I move that we pass, or that we accept you know what I'm trying to say. I make a motion.
Thank you, Becky Talent. Do we have a second?
I second Becky's motion. Lauren Bartlett, Region 11.
Thank you.
So this was presented by the SPJ sponsorship task force that was created at after last year's business meeting. The resolutions committee recommendation was positive, and remember the last paragraph, the resolve paragraph, was added this morning, or changed this morning, as a friendly amendment. Whereas some members of the Society of Professional Journalists have raised concerns about certain sponsors of the Excellence in Journalism Conference dating back to at least 2018. Whereas the Society's pillars and core values include ethics, freedom of information, and diversity. Whereas the Society seeks to cultivate sponsorship relationships with organizations that do not oppose those pillars and core values. Whereas concerned members say that the actions and affiliations of certain conference sponsors may run counter to the Society's code of ethics and mission. Whereas the Society, meeting a convention on September 7, 2019 in San Antonio, Texas, called on the Board of Directors to appoint a joint task force of chapter leaders and unaffiliated members to study this issue and recommend changes to SPJ sponsorship policy. And those recommendations were considered by the board and shared with all SPJ members at least 120 days before the SPJ 2020 Journalism Conference, with an opportunity for feedback and suggestions. Proposal will be brought before the delegates before the closing of the next business meeting. Whereas the task force in January proposed a new sponsorship policy, and whereas the Board of Directors voted in April to accept the policy and advance it to delegates for a vote. Therefore, be it resolved that the delegates of the Society of Professional Journalists meeting a convention virtually on September 12, 2020 adopt the sponsorship task force report and recommendations, and direct the board of directors to enact the proposed sponsorship policy as recommended.
Thank you, Michael. We will now move to comments and questions on the resolution on the floor. I see in the chat field this order, Nancy Cook-Lauer, followed by Bob Elder. So Nancy, if you'd like to go first with question or comment.
Hello, all. I have a question. I'm going to paste this particular one of the paragraphs that is in the description of this resolution. And I'm questioning how this is related to journalism. I don't see a rational nexus. It looks like we're trying to be the morality police. We don't say, okay, we're not going to accept any sponsors who engage in usury. We're not going to accept any sponsors that fire whistleblowers. So I'm not quite sure how this relates to journalism.
Thank you. We are going to ask the chair of the task force on this issue to talk, but we're going to go ahead and take questions first, questions and comments. So we'll follow next with Bob Elder and then Susan Stevens.
Hi, Patty. Am I unmuted?
You're good.
Yeah, great. So just to answer Nancy briefly, this was sort of influenced by the ONA. And for us, it's a statement about what we expect of our sponsors. So it's sort of getting out in front of it. So that's part of what it is. If this is my sort of opportunity to speak about this, as a whole, I can't believe that we're still talking about this. I think Matt Hall and Narissa will also sort of set this up more. We'll give a history for it, but everybody should have this copy. It's new. It's a new policy. It's nonpartisan. It is content neutral. Again, the SPJ board has already endorsed it, and the 13 chapters listed. But for those of you who might be following the controversy, it's simple. And I've said this before, but it is a vote essentially for the soul of SPJ and our core values. And at the heart of the matter is, will SPJ and its partners continue to take money from sources that attack journalists or undermine a free press? Or will we follow our own code of ethics and industry guidelines championed by our sister organizations like ONA? And again, the policy mirrors ONA. And again, if you haven't been following this, SPJ has taken money and allowed programming from sources that have attacked journalists, spread misinformation, and just worked to undermine our whole profession. And that the lack of transparency and shadowy funding that some of these groups operate on is even more distressing. So taking money from these sources is inconsistent with our core values, and it just makes us look bad. Again, I've been on this task force. I was the former president of the Chicago Headline Club this past year, and I was on the special task force with Chairperson Narissa Young and Matt Hall, the incoming president. And after some hard-fought language and hard-fought battles and well-crafted language, a diverse group of journalists came together and unanimously drafted this new policy, which the board then endorsed. At this point, if you're not convinced, I don't know what to tell you. If you're not embarrassed or disappointed that the SPJ has taken money and given a platform to people who have attacked us and undermined us, I don't know what to tell you. Critics of this policy might say that it's political, but it's not. My chapter has been very critical of SPJ taking money from the Koch family through their foundation, and my objection still stands. But this policy is about
Robert.
But I'm sorry, this policy is not about political ideology, and it aims past the Koch family. It goes farther. I don't want anyone like them now or in the future at SPJ events. I don't want anyone in any affiliated entity that attacks journalists, undermines the free press, puts out alternative facts websites, buys Facebook or Google ads to harass and discredit journalists.
And Bob, I'm sorry, you have passed the 2 minutes, so we're going to continue down the list of folks who'd like to speak. Thanks very much. Susan Stevens was next, and then we'll be followed by Beth Conrad.
Hi, Susan Stevens, former Headline Club president, former Region 5 director, currently Headline Club Foundation president, and Headline Club board secretary. I see this almost as a conflict of interest. If we allow the Koch Foundation or any other group like this to come in and give us money, they're going to want something back. And we really don't want to dirty our hands, do we? That's all I have to say. Bye.
Thanks very much, Susan. On to Beth Conrad.
Thank you, Patty. I was a president of the Detroit Pro chapter in the mid-'80s, president of the Chicago Headline Club right before Susan. I'm now the president again of the Detroit Pro chapter. I was also the chapter advisor for journalism school of Loyola Journalism School, and also for Wayne State University. We have discussed this issue in a number of different ethics classes. We have discussed this with our board of directors for the Detroit Pro chapter, along with a lot of different guidance and infusion from the assistant Detroit news editor, Kelly Root, who is now the executive editor of Cranes here in Detroit, as well as a lot of other practicing journalists. I think that Rob and the task force has done a remarkable job on this. I remember taking some of my students 3 years ago, and they were just aghast as far as the sponsorship and the controversy of this without getting some really good answers. SPJ, in its wisdom, decided to develop a task force. Rob and along with the Chicago Headline Club and so many other different pro chapters who've signed on to this and have really scrutinized this, analyzed it, and added their best value and experiences to it that are in line with SPJ's Code of Ethics. I salute them. I see where there's really no further reason for discussion since everything has been totally analyzed and scrutinized, and it is totally in conformity with the values and the mission of SPJ. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just keep in mind, folks, that we have the resolution as written is to pass or not pass, not to revise the proposed policy that the board endorsed, that the task force drafted. So just keep that in mind. Next up, Kim Pewitt-Jones, did you want to speak? Your comment there was unclear in the chat field. Kim Pewitt-Jones, speak. Yes. Not hearing from Kim, we'll circle back to her. Julia, I'm sorry, you don't show a last name. You're next in the queue. Julia, are you with us to speak?
Yes, I believe so. Sorry, I was having trouble getting unmuted.
And thanks. If you could just identify yourself, please.
Yes, ma'am. Julia Denninger. I'm with the SPJ Rio Grande chapter here in New Mexico and representing El Paso, Texas as well. I know a lot of folks here and in other venues have expressed concern about being the definition police. What is a proper investigation for these agencies, entities, groups who are looking to sponsor us? And I would argue, and I know we're not here to amend language, but we've all done this job long enough that when we know when somebody comes forward with accusations of discrimination and harassment, if a company's first reaction is, wow, that's terrible, please sign this NDA, we know that accusation is not going to be properly or thoroughly or fairly investigated. So we know it when we see it. I had a weird analogy running around my head all week. It's a bit like pornography. Can't really define it, but when you see it, you know what it is. So I would make the argument that, no, we're not the HR police. We're not going to tell these organizations how they need to investigate their personnel matters. But If they're asking to attach themselves to SPJ, to its good reputation, and be a part of what we do, then they need to come to us with clean hands, just as we need to go to them in the same way. It's 2020. We can't tacitly endorse this kind of behavior anymore. It's not just a journalism issue. It's where we are in reality. And I don't think it's unfair to ask them that they do things the right way when we all know what the right way is.
15 seconds, Julia.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Julia. Next in the queue is Madhu Krishnamurthy, followed by Pepper Purpura.
Hi,
Madhu?
Madhu Krishnamurthy here, incoming president of the Headline Club. I just wanted to reiterate what Robert Elder said. This is a no-brainer issue. We are talking about keeping special interest money out of journalism, especially we're talking about not taking money from people who are fighting against journalists, fighting against freedom of speech, spreading misinformation and propaganda. This is a no-brainer. As a journalist, you want to keep these special interest funds out of journalistic organizations so that we can remain neutral ourselves. That's basically my statement in support of this resolution, and we should approve it.
Thank you, Madhu. Next, we have Pepper Purpura.
Yes, thank you. As a young journalist, I wanted to also highlight the importance of this for younger generations of journalists as well. It is vitally important that SPJ, as an ethics organization, makes the statement that we want to be inclusive journalists. We've had multiple seminars today about issues of diversity, and this speaks directly to this. If we want to really encourage that and not just, talk the talk and actually make this happen, this motion is vitally important to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Asked to talk. That's Bob Buckman and Bob Becker. And there is a sentiment to have Narissa Young speak as well. So we'll go to her after the next two names that I've just called. So Bob Buckman, please.
I'm just going to sound the same warning that I have all along about what I regard as the vague language as to what constitutes an act against journalism, or whether a claim against discrimination or harassment has been properly done. I think we risk opening a can of worms, and I'm also concerned with what is going to be the appearance of an ideological bias here. Yeah, I don't like OAN any more than anybody else does, but you got to be very careful about singling out organizations because you don't like their politics and taking money from others. Whether our hearts are pure or not, it's not going to make any difference. I guarantee you, once we say we're not accepting money from the Koch brothers or whoever, it's going to be all over the right-wing blogosphere that we're a liberal organization and that we are suppressing freedom of expression and so forth and so on. So just be prepared for that, because in the new age of social media, it's going to happen.
Thanks very much, Bob Becker.
Yeah, I applaud the task force because this was a difficult job. We tried to do it a year earlier and we had met a bad end apparently because we had to do it again. But that said, I have serious problems with the proposed policy. The problems I have with the proposed policy are the phrase that appears multiple times, any funder and or closely affiliated entity. I don't have any problem with including the words any funder. When you get to and or closely affiliated entity, that is a major problem because the funder, which may be doing good work some way, is tainted by its association with a parent or some other entity. The second problem I have is with the bullet about discrimination and harassment. SPJ is the broadest based media association in the country. It includes publishers, editors, station owners, station news managers, and reporters, and all kinds of people. For decades, we have studiously avoided getting into the relationship between working reporters and their editors and bosses. And this gets us into that relationship. The last time and only time I can recall us getting into it was in 2007 when SPJ signed on to an amicus brief supporting the New York Times in a copyright dispute against its freelancers. And we
15
lost
seconds,
members.
Bob.
Yep. I'm sorry,
Thank
David.
you very much.
David, what did you?
Sorry, I'm
that
sorry,
was-
Bob. I was just saying 15 seconds.
Oh, okay. So I would gladly vote for the report, but I cannot support the policy as it's written.
Thank you very much, Bob Becker. There are two other people I'm going to call on first, and then I'm going to ask Narissa Young. So next on my list is Ben Trefny.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thanks.
I'm the president of SPJ NorCal, and we are co-sponsors of this resolution. And I have to say that a few years ago when I went to SPJ, it was a bit of an embarrassment to me, the sponsors who we had at the event. I can imagine that for people of color who were at the event and for younger journalists, it was a huge embarrassment too, and would actually make people like myself question why we are a part of SPJ. It is that significant of an issue when there is divisiveness within so much within society, and it's obviously targeted at journalists, that if there is that kind of tone deafness by this organization to recognize where we would be attacked by organizations just for the possibility of getting some money, I think that it's something that contributes to the downfall and possibly the downfall, certainly the detriment of the organization as a whole. I think this organization really needs to look at itself and who it is, and it may be time to take sides about what journalism actually is, and to really examine what that means. So I appreciate that a lot of people have put their time into examining this, creating a task force. I think that the concerns about who are going to be the police for this would be something that the organization can vet as they seriously consider who would be appropriate sponsors and who would not. And I really do think that the soul of the organization is at stake here. So I appreciate this resolution.
Thank you very much, Ben. Erwin Gratz, next, please.
Yeah, I guess I started a bit of a chat about this a couple of days ago, and really my opinion hasn't changed a whole lot. I really do admire the task force. They have worked on this. They've worked on it for the last couple of years, and I appreciate the growing support that I'm hearing for taking some action in this area. And there certainly is good reason for it. I mean, you can go all the way back to the 1980s when we took a lot of heat for taking money from Philip Morris. And there have been a couple other times when we've refused funding. The last few years, some of the controversy has been the result of the fact that we've not controlled our own convention. That is a potential problem down the road if we want to hold conventions that partner. I guess the only other two things I would mention is that I'm a little bit concerned with the phrase about properly investigate, because I don't understand what that means. It gets to the vagueness Bob Buckman was talking about. Frankly, I don't think we need to go there. The policy also says that the society has the right to refuse money for any reason it chooses, which I think will catch a lot of that. And I guess my other concern is that some of this has been directed at other news organizations. And I would really caution us that as a group that defends strongly the First Amendment, we have to be careful about the ways in which we go after fellow news organizations. I'm not opposed to criticizing them when they do things that are bad, But if we start talking about excluding them from parts of our convention or not accepting their funding, I think we get into an area where we hurt ourselves as an organization that represents journalists. So.
Thank you, Erwin. And this is going to be the last until we go to Narissa Young, please, trying to move things along. David Gordon asked to speak. David Gordon, are you still wanting to speak? Hearing no David Gordon, can we please bring on Narissa Young? And then also I will take the opportunity to invite Matt Hall after that. Narissa Young.
Is she unmuted?
I'm not seeing her. I know she was ready. We're back and forth on text. Narissa, are you with us? Narissa Young, are you with us? Matt Hall, do you want to jump the line and go ahead and talk? Or you want to
Sure.
wait on?
I'm happy to
All
do
right,
that
thank you.
if you want to.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, okay. So I volunteered to be on this task force because I wasn't sure if we could get the job done, which seems like a weird reason to jump on a task force, but also a good challenge. So this is a big issue. We've heard from Robert, who calls it, a battle for the soul of SPJ. You've heard from a lot of people who said it's very emotional, necessary. We've also heard from some people who have some reservations. So I'm just going to really quickly, I know that the time is short and I appreciate you. I'm not a delegate. I appreciate you giving me a chance to speak as the incoming president and as a person who's on the task force. I'm going to give you 6 reasons to support it. Number 1, it does not automatically exclude anyone. It is not geared towards anyone. Everyone has a fair opportunity for us to give us money if we choose to ask them to give us money. The board and the ED, John Schertzer, have full authority to select or reject anyone. That remains. This encourages SPJ's mission. We're talking about ethics. We're talking about diversity. Anyone who sat through the amazing virtual conference we had today, and I do not use the word amazing lightly, took a lot of work to pull it off. A lot of those panels were on the importance of this moment and involving all journalists and giving them a voice. So I think that's an important part. And just quickly, the final 3, the policy does not tilt one way or another, philosophically or politically. Importantly, number 5, it's modeled after ONA's policy. We talked about how we've had a great success with this conference, hundreds of people, more than typical. ONA charges the most money for a conference, gets the most attendees, and turns people away from their conference. They turn people away. And just lastly, something was discussed about how this might affect our partnerships going forward. Obviously, we do not have a partner for next conference. Hopefully that's in person. We don't have a partner going forward. I look at this another way. I don't think this jeopardizes the ability for us to get good partners. I think this incentivizes partners who will want to come and combine their forces with an organization that has a strong ethical business stance.
Time's up, Matt.
Perfect. I hit my mark. Thank you very much.
Patty, you're muted. Sorry.
I knew that, John. I knew that. I'm calling Narissa on my phone, and we're going to see if she can talk through my mic here. She's on the call, but she's unable to connect.
This is 540-599-7477.
Let's move this along. Becky Talent, you said you had a statement from Narissa. So why don't you go ahead and read that, and then we'll bring her in if we can.
Okay, it's always good when your editor has your copy handy, right? She said, thank you for the time this evening. A year ago, delegates approved a resolution asking that a task force be appointed to make recommendations for a new policy at this year's convention. Volunteers who saw this issue from many sides were appointed by President Newberry. Over 6 months, the task force reviewed many documents and passionately debated the existing policy and revisions. Just when our discussions seemed to have reached a standstill, we realized we had many things in common. What we have in common are the foundations or pillars of SPJ: the First Amendment, freedom of information, ethics, diversity, and inclusion. And that's where we began drafting the proposal you see before you now. The task force recommends that SPJ align itself with sponsors and partners whose work and mission support the ideas of SPJ's pillars, that the process of choosing those partners be transparent and approved by SPJ's elected board, that SPJ's executive director provide a final check before any agreements are signed, that those who plan regional and local events voluntarily abide by the policy, all to the end of maintaining SPJ's brand in the world as a leading organization for journalists and journalism. The proposal you will vote on is representative of the entire task force, which voted 9-0 to approve the document and their respective viewpoints. Is it perfect? Probably not, because it is a product of imperfect humans. But it provides consistent guidelines for SPJ staff to follow to plan events, holds the board accountable for its choices, encourages SPJ staff and board members to expand the list of potential partners. The task force.
I'm sorry.
Okay. I'm done.
Thank you very much. So that was Narissa on the phone. Sorry, she apologizes for the tech issues at her end. She would have liked to have voiced that herself. I'm going to take one more question. We do have a suggestion from Michael Drudge in chat to call the question, but there is a lingering question here offered by Pepper. And Bob Becker I'd like Pepper to unmute herself and just say her question for the record, and then have a response to that, and then let's move along because it's already 8:45.
Okay, thank you. I was just wondering if somebody who has concerns about this policy politicizing SPJ to explain their logic. I don't entirely understand that perspective, but I would like to hear it.
And I'll recognize Bob Becker to give his response.
Yes, thanks, Patty. Let's look at the 3 issues that sparked a lot of this debate. One was the fact that the Koch Institute, which is a 501c3 organization that does journalism training using many of the people we would call ourselves on panels. And the opposition was because the Koch Institute, which is a foundation, is associated with the Koch brothers and Koch Industries, we should not take money from the Koch Institute, which is conservative, but it is an organization that, as one of its missions, does journalism training. And so that's why I'm concerned about the funder and any closely related entities, because the Koch Institute uses people I know who are very good journalists in their training programs. The next one was Sinclair Broadcasting, which the summer that this came up had ordered all of its anchors to read a screed against the First Amendment on their newscasts in the evening. And that was even harder because Sinclair Broadcasting is the largest owner of television broadcast outlets in the country. It is a news organization. And when confronted with that, the people who were opposed to Sinclair said, well, their employment practices are really bad. They get young journalists, lock them into employment contracts where if they leave because they're disillusioned with Sinclair's policies, they can't get other work because they've agreed not to work.
15 seconds, Bob.
And the final one is Fox News, which I have been told by members, including leaders, they would never take money from them because of their, let me finish. Because they discriminate against the minority employees. They are a news organization. And as I said in my original time.
That was Fox Radio only, by the way.
Excuse me. As I said earlier, we shouldn't be getting into that employment relationship. That's why the political issues are there.
Thank you. I'm going to take one final comment because David Zeinizer said he had asked to speak before the motion to call the question. So David, we'll have you speak and then we'll consider the question of calling the question, which will require a 2/3 vote of the delegates to call the question. And if it fails, we continue with conversation. So let us go to David Zeinizer.
Thanks. I'm serving this year as president of SPJ in Los Angeles, which endorsed this new policy. One of our board members, Joel Bellman, served on the task force that developed it. For me, this issue goes back 2 years. An investigative journalist whose work I greatly admire asked me, how can SPJ take money from the Kochs after what they did to Jane Mayer of the New Yorker? She knew the story. Many of you do too. Jane Mayer wrote 10,000 words about them, and they responded with a smear campaign against her. Much of this can be found in the book Dark Money. To this journalist, we were teaming up with folks who ran counter to our journalistic mission. And she wanted to know, were we a group that had journalist backs? That was not the only conversation I've had like that since 2018. Now, I've heard these suggestions that the sponsorship policy is about ideology. It is not. It is about actions. Let me tell you, I work in Los Angeles. I deal with plenty of leftists, and there's not one side of the political spectrum that's into cyberbullying or bad behavior, because I've seen it across the board. I care about actions and I care about bad actors. And I don't want to let a bad actor use our good name through any type of funding arrangement. Folks do not have a right to be our sponsor. It is a privilege. Sorry. Now, I don't think any policy is perfect. I certainly don't think this policy is perfect. There's stuff I would have liked to see, and I didn't get it. And I want to be very clear that my support for this is not in any way a criticism of people in this organization, because I know this work is hard and I respect what you do. But I do want change, and I don't want to have to keep answering this question. If I had 4 minutes, I could tell you some of those other questions, but I'm not gonna. But the question comes down to, why would you take their money? And I'm hoping that the board, because this is all going to go to the board, will use sensible discretion and critical thinking to analyze these issues.
Time's up, David. Nicely done.
Thank you very much, David. We are now ready to take a vote on calling the question. It was a motion by Michael Drudge, seconded by Tom Eblin, that we call the question. We need 2/3 of the delegates to vote for the motion, or we will continue the debate. So can we have a poll up on the board?
Yeah, and Patty, just to be aware, so the 101 votes in this body, we need 68 to reach 2/3.
72.
So John, the number you just cited, however, was the total number of votes.
Correct.
We would have to do a roll call vote to get to that, but it looks as though the margin here, the spread, is in the favor of calling the question. Are we good on that? Right, with 62 to call the question, 6 against and 6 abstaining, it looks as though it carries.
Right.
Thank you. Okay, so we are now ready to vote on resolution 3, and I'll turn it back to Mike Savino.
Yes, Madam President. Before we take a vote, just a reminder of what people are voting on, because there's been some requests in the chat to just reiterate what the friendly amendment was for the therefore. Therefore, be it resolved that the delegates of the Society of Professional Journalists meeting and convention virtually on September 12, 2020, adopt the sponsorship task force report and recommendations and direct the board of directors to enact a new sponsorship policy consistent with those recommendations. And that was needed because it was pointed out after this resolution was in that the delegates meeting and convention are not able to pass this on their own. It does require another board vote to enact the policy. That is the reason for the change.
All right, so now are we ready to vote on resolution 3?
Michael, I don't see that change in the document.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Point of clarification. We need more clarification.
Yeah, that's not what I see. The language I have is direct the board of directors to enact the proposed sponsorship policy as recommended.
What did I read?
Amy Fickling trying to re-enter. Join the meeting.
You're correct. I did read the, it should be, therefore be it resolved that the delegates of the Society of Professional Journalists meeting and convention virtually on September 12, 2020, adopt the sponsorship task force report and recommendations and direct the board of directors to enact the proposed sponsorship policy as recommended. That is what the motion should be, because there was also a question about what the board can do after the vote. The resolution directs them to adopt the policy as it is recommended here.
All right.
Thank you.
I believe we are now ready to vote on resolution 3. The resolution carries with 63 votes in yes, 8 against, and 2 abstentions. All right, thank you everybody for good conversation on that. I have been asked to revisit the bundling. There's some dispute here on whether we proceeded through that appropriately, that the vote was to bundle, but not necessarily to accept the bundled resolutions. So I need some clarity either from our parliamentarian or the resolutions chair on whether we need to revisit that.
I believe I made that motion, but apparently other people think we didn't. I will be happy to make it again, to accept, to approve, to adopt all of those resolutions.
So Bob Becker is now moving, just for extra clarification, to actually adopt the bundled resolutions. We need a second.
I'll second. Lauren Bartlett, Region 11.
Lauren Bartlett as the second. All right, is there any additional conversation, questions on the resolutions that we have bundled? Parliamentarian, if there was any desire to pull some out for full reading, should that be articulated now?
That is within
Sure.
your prerogative, Madam Chairman.
Yeah,
Okay.
if someone wants to.
I just need to know when I make that specification.
Why don't we get the vote done and then.
Very good. Let's do a poll vote, John, to move the bundled resolutions. That would be everything except number 3. So 1, 2, etc. Approval of the consolidated resolutions. Thank you. And the ayes carry 70, 1 no, and 1 abstention. Thank you very much. And now it would be appropriate if any of the delegates would like to move to read any of the just passed resolutions for the record. I would entertain a motion to that effect. I will then use the prerogative of the chair to suggest that we read resolution number 11. Michael Zavino, would you do the honors?
Sure thing, Madam President. Resolution 11, thanking SPJ's 2019-2020 Board of Directors, submitted by Patricia Gallagher Newberry, 2019-2020 President. Recommendation of the Resolutions Committee was positive. Whereas departing at-large members of the Society of Professional Journalists Board, Mike Riley and Tess Fox, served the board with distinction during their 2019-2020 terms. Whereas one-year board appointees Erica Carbajal, am I saying that correctly? and Taylor Murfin-Dureski brought new energy and new insights to the Society in their 2019-2020 terms. Whereas President-elect Matt Hall, Secretary-Treasurer Rebecca Aguilar, and continuing at-large members Lauren Bartlett and Yvette Walker made consistent valuable contributions to the board during the 2019-2020 terms. Whereas all board members took seriously their fiduciary duty and duty of care as members of the 2019-20 board directors. Whereas all board members endured 6 official open to all board meetings, 1 official executive session only meeting, and dozens of emails and phone calls in between. Whereas all board members assisted in moving the society forward in multiple meaningful ways, including but not limited to the completion of our strategic planning task force work, the staging of SPJ 2020, and the welcoming of Executive Director John Schertzer. Therefore be it resolved, the Society of Professional Journalists meeting a convention virtually on September 12, 2020, offers sincere and lasting thanks to departing board members Mike Riley, Tess Fox, Erica Carbajal, and Taylor Murfin-Dureski for their work on behalf of members. Let it be further resolved that the Society of Professional Journalists offers most deserved gratitude to Matt Hall, Rebecca Aguilar, Lauren Bartlett, and Yvette Walker for their continued dedication to the Society. Let it be further resolved that the Society of Professional Journalists offers a heartfelt wish for much success in the year ahead to Matt Hall and equal good cheer to the successful candidates for President-elect, Secretary-Treasurer, and at-large board positions. And finally, let it be resolved that outgoing President Patricia Gallagher Newberry offers the Society and all of its staff and all of its board members and all of the chairs of its committees and communities and all of its regional coordinators and all of its leaders and members in chapters or not affiliated across the 50 states of the United States and beyond, sincere and lasting thanks for entrusting her with the position of president in this most unusual and challenging and yet ultimately rewarding of the Society's years. In the 40th or so, she is marked as a Society member.
Do I have a motion?
You don't need oh, yes, for adjourning, if that's what you're asking for.
Oh, right. We've already
voted on this.
We've already approved. The next thing is a motion to adjourn,
Excellent.
which I think was made already.
It was, but I'm ignoring it. And I would like the resolution chair to also read number 13.
13. Thanking SPJ staff for their tremendous work for the Society and SPJ 2020, submitted by Patricia Gallagher Newberry. Resolution Committee recommendation was positive. Whereas the headquarters staff of the Society of Professional Journalists makes it possible for the Society to provide strong professional development programs, defend the First Amendment and the public's right to know, and guide journalists to act ethically. Whereas the Society headquarters staff has risen to every challenge of the last 2 ever-changing years, with the loss of 1 executive director and the hiring of another, with the change from 1 database management system to another, and then finally another, with the unexpected end of an in-person EIJ 2020 and the pivot to a virtual SPJ 2020, and with the embrace of all digital, all-the-time programming, planning, and everyday business. Whereas every staff member contributed in big ways and small to the success of the Society and SPJ 2020 in the past year, with Zoe Berg and Ashlyn Newmeyer providing virtual support to our stellar comm chief, Jennifer Royer, with Carolyn Escobar providing superior service to our members day in and day out, with Jake Koenig playing a key role in transitioning to a calendar fiscal year, and in the black bottom line, with Matt Kent running our contests and elections like a seasoned pro, with Rod Hicks embracing online programming, particularly for college journalists, with Tony Peterson ensuing an on-point and polished society branding, with Billy O'Keefe providing innovative and always fast design and support for our web preferences, including our super cool SPJ 2020 site, with Lou Harry bringing quality Google training to our members and top-notch Quill, print and online content to our members, with Larry Messing expertly chasing down SPJ 2020 guests and concurrently securing needed sponsor dollars, with Karen Sneath joining our happy crew at 3909 North Meridian Street, eventually in person, as our new and much needed Director of Education, and with Linda Hall keeping the trains running on time, 3909 in good working order and everyone up to speed at all times on what's going on in the society world. Whereas John Scherzer stepped into the role of Executive Director on December 2nd, 2019, bringing a resume with deep expertise in managing membership associations, proving himself an exponentially quick study on all things society, and playing key roles in every society plan, program, or problem for the last 9 months, including but not limited to a successful day of giving back, a virtual SDX event, a reimagined society landing page, an innovative strategic plan, a new membership database, and a return to a sound financial position. Whereas John Scherzer, along with Development Director Larry Messing and the most excellent staff of the Society Professional Journalists and a committee of dedicated society volunteers, delivered a high-level, interactive, rich in learning, and impressive in bookings virtual conference in the 111th year of the Society, just 2 months and 2 weeks after determining an in-person EIJ in Washington, D.C. was not feasible. Therefore, let it be resolved that the Society of Professional Journalists, meeting a convention virtually on September 12, 2020, offers its most severe and heartfelt thanks to the Society staff for its commitment to excellence for the Society and its marquee annual event.
Madam President, if I may, I'd like to request a reading of resolution number 12, please.
Resolution 12, thanking outgoing SPJ President Patricia Newberry-Galgary. Patricia Galgary-Newberry. I'll skip the proponents of the bill. Resolutions Committee recommendation was positive. Whereas Patricia Gallagher Newberry is completing her 1-year term as the 103rd president of the Society of Professional Journalists and the 12th woman president in society history. Whereas President Newberry promised at her swearing-in ceremony in San Antonio that she wanted a pretty boring year, and then the exact opposite happened. Whereas the COVID-19 pandemic upended so many people's lives in so many ways and posed an existential threat to the society as it forced cancellations of regional conferences, the SDX Awards in Washington, D.C., and the 2020 convention also in Washington, D.C. Whereas an unfazed President Newberry served with skill, distinction, energy, and inclusiveness, and kept the society and herself with daily walks through dog-friendly parks, moving forward from her home base of Cincinnati. Whereas she helped the society quickly pivot to a virtual reality in 3 important ways, including raising more than $142,000 in SPJ's rebranded Day of Giving Back in April, planning and appearing on a large number of Zoom journalism panels and meetings, and organizing an all-star virtual conference in place of an in-person national conference. Whereas her steady leadership in helping the society erase a budget deficit that needed more than a pandemic-related clampdown on staff and board travel to get out of the red. Whereas the society accomplished a great deal this past year, including hiring new executive director who got off to a fast start, finally replacing its outdated and much maligned database, and helping to craft a strategic plan that can help the society continue on an upward trajectory. Whereas she fought for a free press, open government, and ethical journalism every day, all while juggling a family, husband Doug, grown children Francis, Arthur, and Beatrice, and dogs JJ, Magoo, and Sir Winston, and the work of her 23rd year as a Miami University professor. Therefore be it resolved that the Society of Professional Journalists, meeting a convention virtually on September 12, 2020, from locations all across the United States, thanks President Newberry for serving with such distinction this year and every year since her first year in 2013 on the national board, praises her especially for failing to make this a boring year and for leaving the organization better than she found it upon her swearing in a year ago.
Thank you very much. And with that, we have a motion to adjourn offered by Michael Drudge and seconded by Tara Lynch. Can we just do all those in favor, thumbs up? Anybody opposed? Thank you very much. We stand in adjournment at 9:04 p.m. Thank you very much for your participation, the good conversation about important issue. I am so glad that is behind us. Let us never speak of it again. Have a good night. And there's still a little less than an hour left in pub trivia with Lou Harry. So toggle on over, pour yourself something to drink, and enjoy. See you tomorrow, everyone. Thank you very much. Dave Carlson, if you're still on, thank you very much. Michael Savino, thank you to Carolyn, thank you to John, all the staff who made that run. We did it, man. That was, I'm a little sweaty, but yeah.
I'm gonna have to take a whole shower.
Nice work, you guys. You pulled it off beautifully.
Thank you, Dave, for your help. I'm not the greatest on Robert's rules, as everybody knows. I need reminders, but we muddled through.
Fine. You did fine.
You know, you only do it like once a year and then you never need it again. So
Indeed. I get it.
Indeed, everyone. It's been a day.
Indeed.
But really,
Great job, staff.